A few days ago we got a trailer for an upcoming video game set in the Star Wars universe. Titled Star Wars Eclipse, this game is set in the High Republic sometime before the start of the prequel trilogy, so before The Phantom Menace. This video is not a reaction video, nor a review of the trailer. If you would like to see that kind of thing, there are plenty of other larger channels you can check out that cover that sort of content. Instead, I wanted to go over a few parts of the trailer that I thought were interesting, and give my thoughts and a little bit of speculation on them. So more of an opinion piece which will focus on the spaceships in the trailer, and there were many spaceships. This makes a YouTuber called Starship Reviews quite happy. Mild spoiler warning, the trailer has been out a few days, but you never know. The trailer opens with a sequence of a crashing starship. Now, the astronomy fan in me died a slow death when I saw how close these planets are, and how visible the planetary ring's asteroid belt is, but as soon as the ship came on, I shifted focus. The ship seems like some kind of small freighter or transport. I would guess a smuggler ship, because every Star Wars story seems to have to involve a smuggler in some capacity. Overall, not a bad design, at least from the back end. The next scene I want to talk about is the planet. Now, the first thing that I noticed is the floating starships in the left upper corner of the map. I really like this sort of docking tower thing. Seems like a nice way to have a spaceport in the middle of a busy city without taking up much floor space. The ships themselves seem to be versions of the Republic shuttle we saw at the end of The Phantom Menace, which brought the newly elected Chancellor Palpatine and his party to Naboo at the end of the film, and then a member of the same class that we would see in Attack of the Clones that brought Anakin and Padme to Naboo while they were disguised as refugees. There are also a bunch of blue soldier people there. Not really sure who they are. You see them throughout the trailer. We're not going to focus too much on them, but they're there. I've heard some people suggest that there is a Naboo starfighter there, and that this is actually Naboo. There's supposed to be an N1 somewhere in the shot, but I haven't seen it despite some serious looking. Maybe I'm just blind. If you see it, let me know where. Next up, we have a long shot of a bustling city street. Now, we see some returning people from Rogue One that we saw in Jeddah. Again, not too interested in them, but they're in the trailer. Instead, my eye went to these furry little guys that this one person is carrying. Not sure what they are, or if there will be any mention of them. Regardless, I want one in the worst way. Though because this is Star Wars, I suspect that these will be shown as destined to be sold as street food grilled over a fire or something. Shortly after the man and his yellow monkeys, we have a one-eyed Duro, who I suspect will be a major character in the game. I really like the Duro. I think they're really interesting. And Cad Bane, a member of the species, is just one of the coolest bounty hunters ever. So I look forward to seeing more of this guy in the game. Next up is a long shot of what I can only assume is Yoda, standing in the Jedi Council chambers on Coruscant. I will admit that when I saw this, I had a major moment of disbelief, and then a lot of excitement. Yoda is always cool, and any chance to get a look at his backstory will always have me hooked. In keeping with the Jedi theme, we next see a brief scene with two characters fighting with lightsabers at sunset on a bridge. Now, I don't think these characters are actually fighting. This is probably just training or else just play between two friends, or a master and their apprentice. I hope that this means we see a return to the prequel-era lightsaber duels. The twirling and flying style we got in those films is just iconic and infinitely preferable to the static nonsense we saw in the sequels. Well, the 2 or 3 fights we saw. Not to go on a random, unrelated rant, but how could movies claiming to be Star Wars be so utterly lacking in cool lightsaber duels? Rogue One just had Darth Vader, but him just slaughtering a bunch of poor rebels at the end of the film is a lot more interesting to me than anything we saw in the sequels. Unapologetic rant aside, we next see a planet I have seen guessed as being Kashyyyk, in which case I would be very happy. I like the Wookiees in their homeworld. I think it's very interesting. I also really enjoy the ship that we see landing here. It's a neat little design that gives me YT-1300 vibes, the same class as the Millennium Falcon. Maybe the Corellian predecessor design? Either way, I want one so that me and my yellow monkey thing friend can explore the galaxy. Next up, there is a Nemoidian in which what appears to be Trade Federation service. Now, the Nemoidians are interesting in that Legends continuity, I believe they and the Duro shared a common ancestor, so it will be interesting to see their culture and how it may be fleshed out in this new Disney canon. This also sets out that a major plot point of the game will likely involve the Trade Federation, which appears to be in some form of dispute with another group we see a bit later. I would also guess this guy will play a major role in the series. We see a couple of long shots of characters in the trailer, among them being a protocol droid and a human woman, but this channel isn't really about characters, so let's move on. Now, this shot is an interesting one. We see a group of fur-clad warriors charging a pair of Jedi, maybe the ones we saw earlier. Now, aside from the idea of this hinting at multiplayer I saw bouncing around the internet, two Jedi characters fighting side by side against hordes of enemies, what I find interesting about this shot is the lightsabers, particularly the one on the right. Looks like a Jedi version of that used by a certain Sith Lord with a signature look of superiority, who is alive at the tail end of this High Republic period. Next, we see an army of people which corresponds to the weird Goa'uld Death Glider-looking starfighters we see throughout the trailer. The scene is impressive, and it seems whoever they are, they have a major beef with the Trade Federation. Mainly, I want to discuss the tanks that we see in this scene. While we also get a good shot of the starfighters, and a capital ship above, we see each in other scenes, but the tanks are exclusive to this one. Honestly, I love the looks of these things. They look ponderous, slow, and not very practical, but they give me distinct steampunk or dieselpunk vibes. They really look cool, I think. After this imposing ground army, we have a few long shots which showcase a pitched battle between the Trade Federation and the strange enemy force. Importantly, the Lucrehulk is shown off in vivid detail. It has several long exposure shots, which I appreciate. The Lucrehulk is one of my favorite designs of the prequel era. Though, weirdly, this doesn't seem to be an exact copy of the Lucrehulk. There are a couple of differences, like those things that jut out towards on the donut, the sort of spokes. It also seems like that outer ring is a little bit taller, like fatter. That might just be me, but maybe this is a variant or the direct predecessor to the Lucrehulks that we see in the prequel era. Either way, it's really cool. Oddly, we see later on that these ships are impressively armed. In Legends, these were unarmed bulk freighters that the Trade Federation turned into battleships in secret. So the fact that these ships have this kind of firepower suggests a departure from Legends. We now get a beauty shot of the other side's fighter. It shares a common design element with their capital ships that we'll see in detail in a little bit, having a pair of forward-pointing prongs. I really like these ships. They also have this cool vibe to them, and they look quite menacing. Now we see the aforementioned battleships, fighting with the Trade Federation. As I say, they have a really cool design, with these two forward-pointing prongs and an overall dark, imposing aesthetic. Now in Legends, ships of this size would have been banned under Republic law in the period. Don't know if that's something that's carrying over from Legends, but if we assume it is, then it suggests these ships are under the control of a non-Republic entity. This probably isn't the case, but, you know, this is YouTube, so I'm going to make wild speculation. Finally, we have a few scenes which show a second starfighter class. I've heard of them referred to as a Protodroid Fighter, under the assumption they are Trade Federation craft. We don't get a very good look at them, sadly, so we can't tell much about their design other than it's quite organic and smooth, with a forward ring which presumably does something other than look odd. We see a few more of those battleships and fighters as well. Overall, I really like the look of this trailer. Granted, it doesn't show any gameplay and only hints at the story. The studio Disney has doing the game also has a history of workplace shenanigans that I am not qualified to go into. But at the end of the day, it looks amazing and shows off a lot of ships, so I'm hungry for more of this in the future. I should also mention that I've not covered everything in the trailer. I've just kind of picked the things that stood out to me and that I haven't seen other people on YouTube talk about endlessly. Of course, there's the people with the drums, there's Lord Voldemort, there's Baron Harkonnen, all of that stuff. There's a lot of drumming. There's a few characters, different scenes that I haven't mentioned, but hey, I'm talking about what I want to talk about, and that happens to be spaceships. Big surprise with the channel name, I know. Anyway, I hope you like this quick, not so quick, going on 11-minute video. If you did, be sure to like it, subscribe, all that stuff. Either way, have a nice day.